Chapter 31. What comes next? What could I even say? That he had arrived just in time? Shingetsu was rarely left speechless. Sure enough, not a single white-haired person was normal. Swish, swish. Mamoru and Ruri used the body flicker technique to appear beside Chiyo, then took a scroll from their sleeves and handed it to her. He saw our deal with Kumo. Chiyo frowned slightly. An unknown brat and you couldn't handle him? Mamoru gave a helpless, bitter smile. Mother, that guy is no ordinary person. If one of the people trading with us hadn't been a sensor ninja, we never would have noticed him approaching. Even then, he killed everyone from Kumo, as well as the people I brought with me. He's extremely strong. Shingetsu's ears twitched slightly. His 5 senses were far sharper than an ordinary person's, sharp enough to catch their low voices. A transaction between Sunagakure and Kumo at this point in time. It had to be that. This is bad. I was hoping you could lend me a hand, but it looks like we're finished. Tsukumo also handed Shingetsu a scroll and said in a low voice, the intelligence inside is written in secret script. You must deliver it to Hokage-sama personally. Whoosh, the white fang dagger left its sheath. Tsukumo had already made up his mind to die. I'll hold them off. You two go first. A touch of warmth appeared in his resolute gaze. Go to number 27 on Gourmet Street for me. Tell the hostess at that izakaya that I'm sorry I won't be coming back. And tell her that her salt-grilled Pacific sori and miso-simmered eggplant are delicious. Please for me. What are you doing? Leaving a last will? Shingetsu turned the hilt of his sword and cut him off. What makes you think we can't beat them? He did not quite understand. As far as he knew, Chiyo's son and daughter-in-law had died at Tsukumo's hands, so why was Tsukumo the one being chased by them? Looking at Tsukumo's young, boyish face, he suddenly realized something, that it was probably a matter of timing. Sasori had died in his 30s. Working backward from the present, he should only be 1 or 2 years old right now. His parents had probably died when Sasori was 4 or 5. He could not judge Tsukumo based on fixed impressions. Tsukumo's strength must have improved by leaps and bounds during the years he took part in the Second Shinobi World War. Judging by his peak, the fact that Kakuzu had survived 2 of his slashes back then was already a miracle. After figuring that out, Shingetsu asked, "Can you handle those 2? I'm not done with that old puppet woman yet." Not done yet. Only then did Tsukumo notice the puppet fragments scattered across the battlefield. Judging from the state of the area, the fight had already been going on for quite some time. Although Shingetsu was injured, he showed no signs of being exhausted. Tsukumo naturally knew exactly what kind of person Chiyo was, yet Shingetsu had actually held out this long against a powerhouse like her. His thoughts snapped back into place and he immediately said, I've been poisoned. I can still fight for a short time. If necessary, I can take one of them down with me before I die. Male puppeteers tend to focus on weapon coverage, while women are skilled with poison. Their puppet technique is delicate and strange. Which one do you think I should trade for? Don't trade for either. That would be a huge loss. Across from them, the Uchiha have actually produced a brat even you can't take down. At his son's question, Chiyo's old face darkened. I was only playing with the brat. Once I get serious, this battle will be over soon. Detoxification requires an understanding of toxicology. This can only suppress the poison's effects for about 5 minutes. After that, you'll have to find a medical nin. Shikaku handed Tsukumo a specially made pill. Since this was his first time leaving home, his family had prepared plenty of life-saving medicine for him. Thanks. Tsukumo held the pill in his mouth, waiting to chew it and swallow once the battle began. It's used about half of its chakra. Having you use it afterward is the best choice. Shikaku returned the Earth Grudge Fear to Shingetsu. He had used fire release twice in total, which had helped a great deal. That he looked at Tsukumo and said quietly, If I'm not mistaken, that scroll you handed to Chiyo contains the Uzumaki clan's Fuinjutsu, doesn't it? Tsukumo's pupils shrank. Shingetsu also looked at Shikaku with a strange expression. Shikaku pressed his lips together, shook his head, and let out a soft sigh. This is trouble. My next generation might end up facing a terrifying Jinchuriki. The scars on Tsukumo's body caused by lightning release ninjutsu, the tiny grains left behind after seawater crystallized on the hems of his clothes and those of the 2 Sunagakure ninja, along with many other details. Combined with the major events that had happened recently in the ninja world, Shikaku pieced together the truth. Don't be so pessimistic. Shingetsu said calmly, you probably won't need to wait until the next generation. You should be able to meet one yourself. That isn't comforting, Shingetsu. I wasn't trying to comfort you. Shikaku, you absolutely cannot die. Sakumo's voice was not loud, but it was extraordinarily firm. Your intelligence is too important to the village. You have to retreat. Shikaku shook his head and looked at Shingetsu. I know I'm smart. When I was at the Ninja Academy, I often had to slow my thoughts down just to keep up with my classmates. But I also know, I have a fatal flaw. He smiled and tightened his grip on his kunai. I'm used to skipping over difficult options and finding the easy path. But that's wrong. Sometimes you have to face every difficulty head-on. Sometimes you have to seem foolish, trading second by second, bit by bit, gritting your teeth to win fate's favor. Just like you, Shingetsu. I see, so you've made your choice. Sakumo patted his shoulder and lifted his head high. Then we'll return to the village together. We'll go back alive. Shingetsu narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze dark and unreadable. Why were they suddenly getting all fired up? Had he misunderstood something about him? Difficulties? Gritting his teeth? Had he ever done that? Could it be, did they not find B.A. till thrilling? While releasing the urge to destroy, you could clearly feel your own strength growing. Was there anything better than that? Forget it. There were hardly any normal people in the ninja world. Trying to understand how they thought would only get him assimilated. There's no need for tactics. Flames climbed over Shingetsu's wounds, the intense heat stopping the blood that had been flowing non-stop and burning mottled patches of charred black across his skin. He calculated the chakra he could still use, as well as the condition of the body he had now fully mastered. He should have about boom. Crimson flames erupted from the earth grudge fear, wrapping tightly around his body and spreading rapidly through his limbs and bones. Shingetsu was enveloped in a blazing mist of fire. Yet after that first explosive flare, the flames lost their heat and gave off an unnatural chill that defied common sense. Reflected in those Sharingan eyes, the dim flames carried a piercing cold. Was he intertwining fire-release chakra with the Sharingan's ocular power? Chiyo frowned slightly. She had experienced Shingetsu's powerful body for herself, and she had always followed the strategy for dealing with Uchiha, never looking directly at the Sharingan. Aside from that first flaming slash, she had no information about Shingetsu using the earth grudge fear. That special ninja tool that could store chakra and seemed almost alive. It resembled the legendary lost kinjutsu of Takigakure. Had Konoha obtained it? In any case, Shingetsu and Chiyo spoke almost at the same time. It's coming. Stay fully alert. Chiyo tightened her chakra threads. On her slightly aged face was a solemnity Mamoru rarely saw. That man. Shingetsu's grin nearly split his face to the ears, wild and unrestrained. From here on, let's slaughter them until flesh and blood fly. Chapter 32, 3 Phases Reverse Surge. Bang! Thank you. To the gods who gave me a second life, whether they exist or not, thank you. Thank you. I hold the utmost respect for every bone in my body and every drop of blood in my veins. Thank you. Your voices, the scent of you, the color of your hair, the curve of your lips when you looked at me, the depth of your pupils. I still remember them all. Thank you so much. I am truly grateful to have been born into a world like this. SSSHHK. A sharp puppet tail needle stabbed into him, its barbs tearing out a spray of blood, only for the blood to be burned into a wisp of blue smoke by the intense heat before it could hit the ground. Shingetsu charged straight into the formation, completely ignoring defense and letting the attacks land on his body. The burning pain of his wounds splitting open spread through his flesh, and the taste of blood filled his throat. He let out a low laugh. The shrill scream of chakra tearing through the air. The thrill of life and death brushing past his ear, it made the blood in his entire body boil. Even breathing felt exhilarating. Ah, so this is what being alive feels like. Blood slid down from between his brows, drawn toward his deep pupils. Crashed. A puppet lashed out with a long tail, wrapping it around Shingetsu's waist and dragging him in. Its limbs locked around him like iron gates. At the same time, poison needles, spears, giant axes, scythes, countless weapons and thousands of attacks came down on him in an instant. Bang! A short-range punch delivered in that cramped space announced the exit of the second member of the Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets. Amid the shower of debris, the tomo in Shingetsu's Sharingan spun to their limit, and his vision seemed to freeze. He saw the blade of the sword-wielding puppet, 32 centimeters from his neck. On the other side, the spear tip was 49 centimeters from his chest. Behind him was a puppet that had deployed a mechanical light shield block, cutting off his retreat. Down to his lower right, the shadow of a chain had already fallen over his ankle. Closest of all were the sunbonds stabbing straight toward his eyes, barely 2 centimeters away. Seeing, thinking, and deciding all happened in the same instant. The body bound by heavenly restriction released its full power. His nerves transmitted signals at nearly the speed of light, his muscles shifted between tension and release in 0.01 seconds, and his bones adjusted the angle of every joint. His left foot stomped hard on empty air, and his body tilted and spun in midair. The rotation was so fast that his figure blurred. The blade swept past his left ear, shaving off a small piece of his earlobe. The sunbond struck his shoulder blade and held for only an instant before snapping apart, unable to even pierce his skin. The chain wrapped around his body, but the force of his rotation dragged it flying toward Shingetsu. After cutting a strange arc through the air, it slammed into the mechanical light shield block, sending both flying away. He twisted his body and hovered there, the tip of his foot meeting the spearhead. The iron spear shattered inch by inch, and the puppet's chest caved in with it before the whole thing was blasted backward. Every movement was completed within 1/5 of a second. Absolute insight, paired with an absolute body. A pure, ultimate killing weapon born solely for battle. Chiyo had no time to marvel at the boy's performance. She spread her hands wide, then snapped them together, and 3 more puppets attacked Shingetsu. Rip! A streak of white light suddenly tore through space and time. Tsukumo flew forward to meet them, his short sword drawing a perfect arc in front of him. Lightning-release chakra gathered on the blade, then detached. As it flew, it kept swelling and splitting, turning into dozens of lightning blades. A piercing, thunderous roar exploded, and white light flared. White fang, fierce thunder slaying breath, boom, 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 boom. The 3 puppets were struck by lightning. Black smoke rose from their joints and their movements grew sluggish. Faced with that, Chiyo had no choice but to withdraw her puppets and use long-range attacks to scatter the remaining lightning blades. Without exchanging a word, Shingetsu and Tsukumo moved at the same time, weaving between the puppets and scattered rocks like 2 streaks of light. Mamoru and Ruri's puppets were mainly beast-shaped. They could not perform Chiyo's finger technique style of manipulation, and their limit was controlling 4 puppets. Even in Sunagakure, that level was second only to Chiyo, worthy of the captain of the puppet brigade. Without needing to speak, Tsukumo moved to engage Mamoru and Ruri, while Shingetsu charged alone toward the regrouping 8 Chikamatsu puppets. Watching you, I really can't help but sigh at how many geniuses Konoha produces. Chiyo's face was expressionless, the chaotic yet orderly chakra threads in front of her weaving into something like a curtain. If we weren't enemies, I truly wouldn't want to kill you. The ninja world needs young people like you to feel alive. Her eyes darkened slightly, and an unreadable smile appeared at the corner of Chiyo's mouth. If you want to blame something, blame this cruel era you were born into. An era with no distinction between old and young, only the living and the dead. Chiyo's 10 fingers moved rapidly, and 5 puppets lined up in formation before her. Their palms faced forward. A howling gale surged out, intertwining into a violent whirlwind that could tear apart everything in its path. It drained all the surrounding air away, forming a suffocating vacuum. 5 puppet turbulence, vacuum burial. How could that be? I'm glad I was born in this era. Shingetsu was smiling too, the hickey rested on his shoulder. Flames flowed like water, cycling between his arm and the blade, with darkness surging within the scarlet glow. It's because people like you exist that I can truly enjoy myself. Without a doubt, Chiyo was the strongest puppeteer of the current age. There was no one else. Her puppet technique had surpassed her predecessors and nearly reached perfection. That ultimate control over chakra was practically ART.IT had truly taught him a great deal. Using ocular power to control the earth grudge fear and perform cursed techniques was, in essence, also a form of puppet technique. With the Sharingan's grasp over spiritual power and the amplification brought by incantations, it was almost like being one mind and body. But it was still missing something. Compared to the very best puppeteers, it was still just a little short. Chakra was the fusion and extension of physical power and spiritual power, making it more complete than spiritual power alone. Because of heavenly restriction, Shingetsu could not manifest any chakra outside his body except through ocular power. Was there a way to add another medium, making that control faster and smoother, allowing him to unleash stronger attacks as if he were manipulating a puppet. A part of the body, something with extensibility. The answer had already appeared: blood. Since chakra could not break free from the restraints of heavenly restriction, then let spiritual power and physical power fuse within heaven and earth. Drip, drip. Drops of bloody tears fell from his eye sockets and splashed onto the burning blade. They were not scorched into smoke. Instead, like paint, they spread through the empty space around the blade, rendering a picture. Black and red blended together into a dreamlike purple. His lips parted slightly and a soft, bewitching murmur slipped out. 3 phases. Reverse surge. Collapsing wedge, irreversible flame feathers. Using blood to manifest physical energy, using ocular power to construct the link for spiritual energy, and using the chanted incantation to connect them. A complete jutsu, different from ninjutsu, one that could be called a system of its own, was truly born in this moment. The vacuum storm sliced off strands of hair like a blade. Black hair fell against his lips. Space and time seemed to stand still as Shingetsu slowly shifted the blade, drawing a crescent arc, and spoke softly. Bang! Purple fire moved through the raging wind like a snake, like a fish, like water, like a wisp of blue smoke. It was so beautiful that Chiyo, for a moment, forgot what she should do. She could only wait as that gorgeous purple flame filled her vision. If you'd like to support my work and unlock advanced chapters, you can follow me on p-at-trian.com/pinksnake, 50 chapters ahead for now. You can also follow as a free member to read a few advanced chapters. Chapter 33, I Lost. An eerie silence settled over the battlefield. The purple flames spread like paint across empty space, slowly expanding, slowly swallowing everything. Without a sound, they erased the fissures and filled the vacuum. Seeing Chiyo stand frozen before the incoming attack, even her puppet-controlling hands hanging limp at her sides, Raza and the others shouted in alarm. Chiyo-sama! Mother! What are you doing? Chiyo heard none of their calls. In her mind she drifted back. She remembered that day. Sunagakure village had dug up a new water source. Everyone was happy, and she had been happier than anyone. Monzaemon-sama had finally agreed to teach her puppet technique. Back then she was still a teenage girl, unable to hide her emotions. Her smile had been bright, open, and full of joy. The memories after that rather annoying junior brother. His talent was nowhere near hers, but because he was Monzaemon-sensei's nephew, he received far more favoritism. When had she stopped finding him so annoying? She could no longer remember. By the time she thought back on it, Mamoru had already been born. That period, it was because of Hashirama Senju. While that man was alive, everyone lived in peace. Missions were not dangerous, relations between the great nations were harmonious, and everything seemed so wonderful. How did it become, if I could, know? No. What am I thinking? I am the strongest puppeteer. I am an important pillar of Sunagakure, here to help the village win this war. I just obtained the Fuinjutsu. I have to bring it back to the village and create the strongest weapon, the Shikaku Jinchuriki. How could I go soft on some brat from another village? Go soft? No. The moment those dim eyes lit up again, the purple flames that had burned through the chakra threads were already right in front of her. She had no time to dodge. Whoosh, bang. Her thoughts had barely snapped back when a tremendous force shoved her body aside. It was Ruri. She had been closest to Chiyo. At the critical moment, she took Sakumo's blade head-on and used her puppet to push Chiyo out of danger. Hissed. It was not the crackle of flames burning wood. The instant the purple fire touched the puppet, it vanished like snow beneath the blazing sun. The purple fire did not continue spreading. It fell to the ground and splashed apart. Ruri! Mamoru flew forward and caught Ruri. The terrifying amount of blood instantly soaked through his clothes. A gruesome slash ran from her shoulder to her abdomen, electric arcs flickering over the wound and tearing it open even further. Swish, swish, swish. Chiyo immediately controlled her puppets to shield Ruri and Mamoru. After steadying her breathing, she glared at Shingetsu with eyes nearly splitting from fury. What did you do? What kind of technique was that? If Ruri had not disregarded her own safety, Chiyo was certain she would have been burned away just like that puppet. She did not have an indestructible body. Compared to a puppet, she was far too fragile. Shingetsu's aura had visibly weakened, and the flames that had been lingering around him all this time died out. According to his original calculations, if he combined taijutsu with simple fire release, the chakra inside Earth Grudge Fear should have lasted several more minutes. But this was his first time using this jutsu in full, and he had failed to control the scale properly. After being pushed past its limits, even Earth Grudge Fear's black tendrils had grown dim and lost their vitality. That he looked at Ruri and smiled faintly. You could tell how dangerous my cursed technique was. You're sharp and decisive too. Having lost his chance to kill Chiyo, Shingetsu showed no frustration at all. Instead, he sincerely praised his opponent. Ruri, who had lost too much blood, could not respond. Her pupils were beginning to dilate. Without immediate treatment, only death awaited her. Unexpected turns were part of battle, and Shingetsu accepted that calmly. In that case, he gripped the hilt of the Hiki blade and smiled. Too bad. Looks like I won't get the chance to kill you, old woman. The chakra inside Earth Grudge Fear was exhausted. He still had physical strength left, but with taijutsu alone, killing an almost uninjured Chiyo was impossible. Of course, that only meant he had no chance to kill her. Victory and defeat were still uncertain, and the battle was not over. Chiyo was silent for several seconds, then she let out a long breath. Shingetsu Uchiha, that is your name, correct? The corner of Shingetsu's mouth lifted. You're not about to say you'll remember my name before killing me, are you? Don't get too arrogant. I lost. Chiyo, a pillar of Sunagakure whose prestige rivaled that of the third Hokage, spoke those words calmly. Chiyo-sama. You, Raza wanted to say more, but Chiyo raised a hand and stopped him. She lifted a finger. It was the signal to retreat. Even though Mamoru was frantic over his lover's condition, they were still on the battlefield. He had to wait for Chiyo's decision before he dared pick up Ruri and withdraw. Raza looked back unwillingly, then followed them away. Ruri could still be saved. Chiyo was Sunagakure's finest medical nin, and it would not be an exaggeration to call her the finest medical nin in the ninja world. But if the fight continued, Ruri would certainly die without timely treatment. Chiyo would not choose that. Compared to losing family, the outcome of one battle meant nothing. She gave Shingetsu a deep look, as though trying to engrave the boy's face into her memory. Chiyo smiled. You reminded me of some beautiful things. You're clearly such a vicious little brat, yet there's a trace of tenderness hidden in your killing technique. Shingetsu did not quite understand. After all, he was not stupid enough to hit himself with that flame. That it had probably forced out Chiyo's life flashing before her eyes and made her mistakenly think the technique also had an infinite Tsukuyomi effect. She gathered up her puppets and tucked the scroll into her sleeve. Before turning away, she glanced at Tsukumo Hatake, the smile gone from her face. I'll remember that, Tsukumo Hatake. Pray you never meet me on the battlefield. I won't let you off. In her view, she had been the one to seek out Shingetsu and attack first, so no matter how Shingetsu counterattacked or what consequences followed, she had to bear them herself. She could not blame him, but this white-haired man, first he had disrupted Mamoru and the others' mission. Then he had inflicted severe injuries on Ruri, forcing Chiyo to admit defeat and retreat. It was simply unforgivable. Whoosh! Chiyo's figure vanished, and Shingetsu did not stop her. If a standard Kage-level expert in perfect condition wanted to leave, he did not have the ability to keep her there. Making a move would have been pointless. Tsukumo pointed at himself, looking confused. Even if I was the one who injured that woman, the root cause was still you, wasn't it? So why does she only hate me? It was the same last time. You were the one cursing at Kakuzu the entire time, but for some reason he suddenly stopped being angry. What is going on here? Shingetsu shook his head. Who knows what those old things are thinking? Maybe it's because I'm better looking. Looks like there's something wrong with their brains, but their eyes still work just fine. Tap, tap, the crisp sound of footsteps rang out, and Tsukumo's nerves, which had just started to relax, instantly went taut again. The antidote's effect had worn off. As he turned around, he staggered and pitched toward the ground. Smack! A pale hand caught Tsukumo. The faint scent of soapberry from long black hair drifted into his nose. That scent, Tsukumo looked up and saw a familiar face, Orochimaru. Chapter 34. In the darkness, the eye of life and death. Shingetsu's grip on his sword loosened slightly. His Sharingan told him that the Orochimaru before him was real, not an enemy's transformation technique. When did you get here? Orochimaru had received orders from the front line and left a month ago, so Shingetsu was a little surprised to see him. A green glow shone from Orochimaru's palm, temporarily suppressing the poison inside Tsukumo's body. Fully neutralizing it would require a complicated process. It seems my concealment skills are rather good. Even Shingetsu-kun failed to notice me. I never left. Shikaka's brow tightened and he asked, "You were here the whole time? Then why?" Before he could finish, Orochimaru said calmly, "There was no chance to intervene." After helping Tsukumo sit down, Orochimaru walked toward Shingetsu. Shingetsu had grown quickly. At 10 years old he was already close to 1.6 meters tall, but he was still a head shorter than Orochimaru. Those pale golden vertical pupils lowered slightly. "There were several times I wanted to step in, but I always felt I would be spoiling your fun. As for just now," Orochimaru looked in the direction Chiyo and the others had left, then said slowly, "There was no way for us to keep Chiyo here, and the price would have been Tsukumo's death at the very least. It wasn't worth it." He turned back, the corners of his mouth lifting. "Shingetsu, you really did it. You broke through your own limits and created a new jutsu, fusing physical energy and spiritual energy outside the body. A brilliant idea." Everyone regarded Orochimaru as a rare genius who appeared only once every few decades, but in his eyes his own talent was nothing compared to Shingetsu's. Shingetsu held back a smile and forced the corners of his mouth down. "Humph, wasn't that only expected?" Orochimaru naturally picked up the barely breathing Earth Grudge Fear. "I'll go find that person and recharge you." As he spoke, a sharp light flickered in his eyes. Earth Grudge Fear still has limits. As the opponents you face grow stronger, the role it can play will only shrink. If it could replenish chakra on its own and gain a certain degree of recovery ability, like a tailed beast. Shingetsu raised an eyebrow. Orochimaru pondered for a few seconds, then said slowly, "Let's not think that far ahead. Tailed beasts have existed for over 1,000 years. They're natural disasters that evolved from nature. Perhaps we can modify Earth Grudge Fear into the concept of a living puppet. What do you think?" A fully autonomous human puppet, Orochimaru had watched the whole battle, and it seemed he had also found inspiration in Chiyo's fighting style. That if Earth Grudge Fear could fight independently while supplying chakra, that would indeed be a major upgrade. The group found a shady place to sit, and Orochimaru helped Tsukumo cut open his wound to drain the poison. Tsukumo's face twisted in pain, and he bared his teeth. "Isn't there a gentler way to detoxify me? I'm not a professional medical nin. If you need one, I can take you to Tsunade." Tsukumo thought about it. That woman was even less gentle than Orochimaru. He quickly shook his head. "Forget it. Man, I really thought I was going to die this time. First it was an S-rank missing nin from Takigakure, and now we actually ran into Chiyo of Sunagakure. Shingetsu, do you have some special connection with the older generation, or is your luck just that bad?" Before Shingetsu could speak, Orochimaru answered on his disciple's behalf. For a genius like Shingetsu, one who surpasses his peers, encountering famous experts is perfectly normal. It has nothing to do with luck. He turned to Shingetsu and said in a low voice, "This is the price of becoming famous young." This time it was Chiyo. "Next time you will enter the sights of even more powerful people, perhaps even a Kage. Since Earth Grudge Fear needs time before it can be used again, I suggest you return to base and recover." Shingetsu thought for a moment, then nodded. "I have an idea. I need time to sort it out." He could not keep placing his hopes on Earth Grudge Fear as his means of long-range attack. After this battle, the vague idea in his mind had been confirmed. Orochimaru lowered his eyes, as if he had seen through what Shingetsu was thinking. "Blood?" "Yeah." Shingetsu raised his hand. A drop of blood seeped from his fingertip and took the shape of a steel needle. Whoosh! The blood needle shot out, struck a nearby dead tree and exploded, snapping it clean in half. Its power was impressive. Using ocular power as the medium, I can control the shape transformation of my own blood. Maybe I can develop it into a technique usable at all ranges. Orochimaru frowned slightly and quickly saw the flaw in this approach. Even if your body produces blood faster than an ordinary person's, a technique that burns through blood this quickly will put you at risk of dizziness from blood loss once you exceed your limit. To be honest, with your personality, I'm certain you'll overdo it. Ha! Am I some impulsive person? Aren't you? Orochimaru, Sakumo, and even Shikaku all looked at Shingetsu strangely. Anyone who knew you even a little would never connect you with the word calm, would they? Suddenly, Shikaku spoke. Orochimaru-sama is right. If blood is released as a disposable weapon, the cost is too high. But, Shikaku pressed a finger to the ground, and his black shadow surged like a swimming snake. If it's used like my shadow, the problem of consumption can be eased. The group was silent for a while. Sakumo was the first to speak. I don't know much about clan secret techniques, but even with the Hatake clan's swordsmanship, my father strictly forbade me from teaching it to outsiders. Shikaku, if you do this, the Nara clan. Orochimaru shook his head. This is a taboo in Konoha. Even if you willingly teach it, Shikaku, others won't see it that way. It won't be good for you or Shingetsu. What bullshit taboo? The corner of Shingetsu's mouth lifted, and he exchanged a smile with Shikaku. You didn't teach me. I copied it with my Sharingan, right? Shikaku smiled and nodded. In any case, those old fossils in my family definitely wouldn't dare make trouble for the Uchiha. As for everyone else, Orochimaru-sama, don't underestimate your own weight. Orochimaru froze slightly, then shook his head with a bitter smile. Have I become an old fossil too? Sakumo let out a long breath. His gaze darkened as if he had made an important decision. I suddenly have a feeling that I might have a daughter who doesn't like swordsmanship. In that case, Shingetsu-kun, would you be interested in learning it? Unparalleled talent, a tenacious mind, and the presence to make others willing to teach him everything they knew. Even I can't help W. Anteing to add a stroke to this great undertaking, Orochimaru lowered his eyes slightly and gazed deeply at Shingetsu. Just how far will you grow? It really makes me tremble with anticipation. In an unknown land deep within a dark palace, the stone floor began to writhe and strange white creatures emerged from it. Madara-sama, we found someone capable of bearing your eyes. He's in the land of rain. In the darkness, a pair of pale purple eyes, holding the mysteries of life and death, slowly opened. As for an Uchiha clansman to serve as your proxy, I also have a suitable option here. Chapter 35, The Second Shinobi World War begins. The Land of Rain, Konoha Ninja Camp. Looking at the thing on the operating table, Orochimaru's expression looked rather grim. It was a mass of black matter, constantly twisting and writhing as it let out low, hoarse groans. Gray puppet fragments were mixed among its tentacles. Those fragments came from the shattered remains of the Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets. Every piece carried the wisdom and effort of 2 generations of the strongest puppeteers. After collecting them, Orochimaru dismantled them and embedded them into the tentacles of Earth Grudge Fear in a specific ordered IN addition. Taking advantage of Earth Grudge Fear's ability to draw chakra from hearts, Orochimaru used ninja body tissue collected from the battlefield as filler and binding material. After 2 months he had assembled this indescribable gray-black monster, a thing with no human mentality whatsoever. You broke Earth Grudge Fear. Shingetsu spoke with a calm face. Orochimaru was silent for quite a while before shifting his gaze away from the monster on the operating table. It isn't broken. This is merely a stage in the construction process. You know, newborn infants aren't attractive either, but they become more complete as they grow. No. In the photos my mom left behind, I was already good-looking as a baby. An individual case cannot refute an experimental hypothesis. Besides, your belief that you looked good is purely self-perception and lacks objectivity. Enough. Just tell me when I can use it. Shingetsu rolled his eyes at Orochimaru. Ever since the encounter with Chiyo, Shingetsu had returned to camp to familiarize himself with and develop his curse technique, while Orochimaru had gone to carry out missions with Jiraiya and the others. It did not take long for Orochimaru to come back with a fully charged Earth Grudge Fear, saying he wanted to test that mad idea. In other words, he wanted to modify Earth Grudge Fear into a humanoid cursed tool capable of absorbing chakra on its OWN.AS. For Orochimaru's ideas, Shingetsu was usually quite indulgent. Orochimaru pondered for a moment, his pale fingers rubbing his chin as he murmured, "The current problem is containment. It lacks a shell to hold everything together. Sorry. You probably won't be able to use Earth Grudge Fear for a while. I need to run more experiments. Fortunately, this is a battlefield. There's no shortage of experimental material. How long have you been doing human experiments?" Shingetsu suddenly asked. Orochimaru exhaled lightly. The first time was probably 6 years ago. It was an experiment involving the first Hokage's cells. I can't really say I participated. Danzo-sama only allowed me to observe a few times. This is the village's top secret. You. Forget it. That project has already been stopped anyway. After the first Hokage passed away, the second Hokage began research into Lord First's cells in order to recreate the invincible power of wood release. When the second Hokage was sacrificed and Hiruzen-sensei succeeded him, he led the cell transplant experiments to fill the gap in the village's combat strength. But even members of the Senju clan could not withstand the first Hokage's cells. The experiments caused many casualties and were eventually halted. A look of yearning appeared in Orochimaru's eyes as he praised, "It's hard to imagine, for his cells to remain so active after so many years of death. How powerful must the first Hokage have been while he was alive?" As he spoke, he suddenly stopped and looked at Shingetsu. "Does it disgust you, Shingetsu-kun? I don't like it, but I can understand why it happened." However, Shingetsu gave Orochimaru a meaningful look and said softly, "If anyone dares lay a hand on my family, I'll kill everyone involved." The Hokage would be no exception. Jiraiya and Tsunade often felt that his actions were too harsh. That was because they had never really spent time with Shingetsu. Orochimaru coughed a few times to ease the awkwardness. How could that happen? The Uchiha are important comrades of the village. As for the research into the first Hokage's cells, Hiruzen-sensei also obtained Mito-sama's consent. He did not dare say that among the second Hokage's experimental materials there were records involving Madara Uchiha. If Shingetsu found out, the second Hokage's grave might be in danger. Orochimaru sealed the hissing, twisted creation on the operating table into a scroll. And the tent instantly grew much quieter. He felt that after letting Shingetsu see something so unbeautiful, the child needed a gentler topic. He said softly, "Shingetsu, do you miss your parents?" Before Shingetsu could answer, the corner of Orochimaru's mouth curved faintly. "My parents were Konoha ninjas. They died in the First Shinobi World War. It's been so long that I've almost forgotten what they looked like." A faint, almost imperceptible sadness appeared in the eyes of this person who would one day transform into a cold-blooded monster. Shingetsu strode toward the exit and pulled up the heavy curtain. Does he not want to answer? Orochimaru smiled faintly and was just about to turn away. The sadness that comes from missing someone is also a beautiful feeling. Sunlight spilled across the boy's face. The wind lifted his hair and light and shadow shifted over him in mottled patches. Compared to that shout from before, this calm voice left an even deeper mark on Orochimaru's heart. He could not help shaking his head with a bitter smile. Shingetsu, another year or so passed. The beginning of Konoha Year 32, the friction between the three great nations in the Land of Rain duly escalated. Iwagakure poured a large number of troops into the battlefield, forcing Konoha to reinforce its defenses. The Land of Earth had a harsh environment and very little land suitable for growing food. People who could survive in that kind of place could basically be turned into fighting force just by handing them a set of ninja tools. Meanwhile, the borders of the Land of Fire were full of farming households. If Iwagakure seized the Land of Rain, there would be no buffer between the two great nations, which would be extremely unfavorable for the Land of Fire. As for Sunagakure, there was even less need to explain. They were poorer than the Land of Earth. Even if they could not invade Konoha, simply attacking the Land of Rain would be enough for them to make back their investment. The cause of war was profit. What prolonged war was hatred, and the civilians of the Land of Rain, in this game between great nations, they suffered the deepest wounds. Incidents of ninja accidentally killing or deliberately killing civilians of Amigakure continued to happen. In response, the leader of the Land of Rain, Hanzo of the Salamander, who could endure it no longer, formally declared war on the three great nations. Hanzo? That guy with the breathing tube? Ha ha ha. What a joke. Who does he think he is? He fought a small nation like the Land of Iron and now thinks he can talk back to the great nations? He doesn't know his place. He's just the leader of some tiny ninja village. He should obediently hide in a corner and cling to life. What is he trying to show off for? Exactly. Remember when we were in the Land of Grass? The way the leader of Kusagakure acted so timid and servile was hilarious. Don't say that. Hanzo is still very strong. Ordinary Jonin probably wouldn't be a match for him. So what? How many Jonin does Amigakure have? How many ninja do we have? No matter how strong he is, can he withstand our Iwagakure army of thousands upon thousands? Hanzo's declaration of war was dismissed by every ninja of the three great nations as the barking of a powerless dog. Half a month later, the world witnessed the terrifying power of the ninja who had grown up immersed in the deadly poison of the salamander in a single night. More than half of the Iwagakure ninja stationed in the Land of Rain were killed or wounded, and over 1,000 ninja fled in defeat. 1 man against 1,000, an overwhelming victory. The name Hanzo of the Salamander shook the ninja world, and thus the Second Shinobi World War began. Chapter 36, Red Moon, is what you're saying true? At the border of the Land of Earth, the third Tsuchikage Inoki shot up from his seat after hearing the report, roaring in fury. The ninja kneeling before him trembled all over, but not because of the Tsuchikage's anger as he recalled the horrific scene on the battlefield. His voice turned unbearably hoarse. 2,142 ninjas, 1,400 dead, and only 1 person attacked. Hanzo of the Salamander. The moment he spoke that name, he could no longer withstand the crushing psychological pressure and fainted from sheer terror. At the head seat, the nearly 50-year-old Inoki breathed heavily. In all his years leading Iwagakure, he had never encountered anything like this. He had seen Hashirama Senju, the man who single-handedly brought order to a chaotic era. He had even fought against that man, someone comparable to the god of shinobi. Without a doubt, those two had surpassed the very concept of ninja. They were legends walking the earth of the ninja world. But, even they had never killed more than 1,000 people in a single battle. Over 2,000 ninjas, even if 2,000 pigs were running around in a panic, 1 person shouldn't be able to slaughter them until only a few hundred were left. Iwagakure did need war to consume its excess ninjas, but it could not withstand losses like this. After finally calming himself, Inoki stared fixedly at the intelligence in his hand, his gaze so intense it seemed ready to burn straight through the paper. I see, Ibius the Salamander. A summoned beast capable of releasing a wide-range deadly poison, and it was not just the poison. According to the intelligence, Hanzo possessed an almost miraculous water-style body flicker technique. In an environment like the Land of Rain, his speed nearly rivaled the second Hokage's Flying Thunder God technique. That allowed him to freely reap the lives of ninjas paralyzed by the poison, with no one able to oppose him. On top of that, there was a large-scale explosive tag array. By combining all these factors, Hanzo had pulled off a feat that could only be called miraculous, something no one had ever accomplished before. Inoki quickly realized the truth. To ordinary ninjas, Hanzo was an unsolvable existence, an enemy who absolutely could not be defeated with numbers alone. A faint glimmer flashed as his eyes narrowed. Hanzo's poison was not the problem. Inoki was one of the rare ninjas in the ninja world who could fly, giving him an innate advantage in most battles. Besides, no matter how powerful a poison was, it meant nothing before dust released. If Hanzo were only relying on poison to run rampant, Inoki would have immediately gone out personally to kill him, avenge the fallen, and restore Iwa's prestige. For him, the real difficulty lay in the water-style body flicker technique mentioned in the report. No matter how powerful dust release was, it meant nothing if it could not hit its target. Of course, Inoki did not rely solely on dust release. His masterful earth release was what he used most often for both offense and defense, but that brought another problem. To defeat Hanzo up close, he would have to face that deadly poison. Before resolving the issue of abuse venom, challenging Hanzo was not a wise choice. Having held a high position for so many years, Inoki would not let rage cloud his judgment. He slowly sat back down and said in a low voice, "Make preparations. We march around Amigakure. Our target, the Land of Fire." With Iwa's example fresh in their minds, the ninjas of Sunagakure and Konohagakure tacitly withdrew to the border of the Land of Rain and waited for orders from headquarters. In the Konoha camp, the ninjas who had been scattered across the Land of Rain gathered together for the first time. Everyone had been affected by the news from the battlefield, and their faces were grim. Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha existed in legend, but Hanzo's terror was something they had truly witnessed. This could no longer be called a battle. It was a massacre. The Konoha ninjas had laughed when Hanzo declared war, but now not a single one of them could smile. Orochimaru-sensei, is that Hanzo really that scary? Looking at his companions' mournful faces as if their mothers had died, a young boy with 2 rosy patches on his cheeks asked innocently. Nawaki had graduated from the Ninja Academy not long ago and officially become Orochimaru's second disciple. That made even more people certain that Orochimaru was the only candidate for the next Hokage. Even the first Hokage's grandson had become his disciple, not to mention, there was another, even more terrifying figure. An Uchiha genius known as invincible in his generation. The Destroyer, the Blood-Red Demon, the Deep Crimson Nightmare, the Indestructible Vajrabody, the Battlefield Tyrant, the Merciless Butcher. Over the past year, his enemies had given that person far too many titles. The Konoha ninjas could only choose one that was not quite so bloody, one the public could just barely accept. Red Moon. To see him was like watching a blood moon descend. Death was certain. On par with White Fang, he had displayed a level of combat power on the Land of Rain battlefield that made hearts tremble. Just as Orochimaru was about to answer Nawaki, he sensed something, and everyone turned to look in the same direction. You don't need to know. Someone like you is already kind of unnecessary on the battlefield. A lazy voice rang out, and a slender black-haired youth walked over. He was around 5'7", with soft hair hanging by his ears. He was very handsome, but without the delicate, effeminate air common among his clan. There was a faint distance in his eyes and even more than that, indifference. Shingetsu. You're back. Nawaki ran over excitedly, stretched out a hand to measure himself against him, then shook his head in disappointment. I've been trying so hard to eat more. Why am I still so much shorter than you? Shingetsu picked Nawaki up and tossed him aside, then walked toward the conference table where the Jonin were seated, pulled out a chair and sat down. Not long ago he had broken the record held by Sakumo Hatake and become Konoha's youngest Jonin at only 12 years old. Tsunade glared at him in dissatisfaction. Nawaki is basically your little brother. Can't you be a little gentler with him? Don't say that like there's something special between us. I'm not interested in old women. What did you say, you bastard? Old woman. Didn't hear me? Aya. I'm going to kill you. Here we go again. Jiraiya and Orochimaru each took one side, stopping the two before a fight could break out. Ever since their first meeting at the Ninja Academy several years ago, every encounter between Shingetsu and Tsunade had been filled with the smell of gunpowder. A few months earlier, the two happened to run into each other when no one was around to stop them, and they really did fight. The destructive power both sides displayed was so terrifying that no one dared to watch, and no one knew exactly what happened. In any case, during those few days, the Konoha camp's medical supplies were consumed at a rate that even exceeded wartime levels. Since then, Konoha ninjas had gone to great lengths to prevent the two from meeting unless at least 5 Jonin were present. Tsunade, flushed red with anger, sat down after everyone tried to calm her. She glared viciously at Shingetsu. Kid, don't let me catch you alone. Shingetsu crossed his legs and gave a cold laugh. I wonder who got beaten until she cried last time. Damn it. I didn't cry. You shameless bastard, you kept aiming for my face. Besides, you were clearly the one who got hurt worse. Still better than a certain sniveling old woman. Bastard. Say that again. I have no obligation to repeat myself for a deaf old woman. Ayareawea. When it came to verbal arguments, Shingetsu was always the winner. He did not need to say anything especially vicious. He only had to seize on the thing his opponent cared about most and hit it hard. Tsunade's composure would shatter within a couple of lines, and her upbringing kept her from dragging Shingetsu's family into it. Bastard, shameless, villain, that sort of thing. Shingetsu did not even consider them insults. Tsunade's face turned so red it looked ready to drip blood. If looks could kill, oh, the Senju clan did not have that ability, but the Uchiha clan did. Tsunade, calm down. And you, kid, forget it. At the head seat, a round-faced, seemingly kind middle-aged man shook his head with a bitter smile, afraid that saying anything more would draw the flames of war onto himself. He had heard from his old comrade Danzo just how eloquent this junior of Kagamis could be. Torafu Akimichi, the head of the Akimichi clan, had once been a member of the second Hokage's Shadow Guard. As the highest authority in Konoha's defense system during peacetime, he was now serving as the frontline commander on the Land of Rain battlefield. Chapter 37, The Ninja Battle Attendance King, Hanzo. I'd heard long ago that he was strong, but I never imagined he was this strong. Danzo isn't here. I already sent word back to the village and I just received a reply. Strictly speaking, the overall commander of the Land of Rain front was Danzo Shimura, but after recent movements from Kumogakure, Danzo had no choice but to reinforce the eastern front. At the head of the table, Torufu Akimichi tried his best to make his baby face look serious. Lord 3rd Hiruzen Sarutobi-sama will come to the battlefield in person. The moment everyone from Konoha heard that, the gloomy atmosphere was swept away. The Hokage was not merely the title of the strongest person in the village. It was a person acknowledged by everyone. Hiruzen Sarutobi. Shingetsu remembered how excited the man had looked when rushing to the battlefield during the Fourth Shinobi World War, and could not help smiling. Hiruzen Sarutobi was probably the only Hokage with perfect attendance across all 4 Shinobi World Wars. Everyone had flaws. In his old age he was too soft toward his disciples, hesitant when making decisions for the village, but saying that this man was afraid of battle and only dared to manipulate things from behind the scenes in Konoha was pure nonsense. It's just poison. Give me some time and I'll have an antidote ready soon enough. Tsunade was not just boasting. Even her disciple, Sakura Haruno, had quickly prepared an antidote for Sasori of the Red Sands poison, a toxin more complex than salamander poison, during the battle against Sasori of the Red Sand. With Tsunade's ability, as long as she had enough samples, breaking it down was only a matter of time. Shingetsu turned to look at her and let out a faint breath through his nose. He did not say a word, but that expression alone was enough to make Tsunade snap. What's that supposed to mean, brat? Are you doubting me? Orochimaru had deliberately seated himself beside Shingetsu, ready to stop a Senju and Uchiha dispute at any moment. Shingetsu, Tsunade is capable of it. I didn't say she couldn't. Shingetsu stopped deliberately provoking Tsunade and said evenly, if Hanzo were just a ninja who relied on poison, do you think the Hokage would need to come here personally? Tsunade turned her head aside and gave a light snort. Who knows? Maybe the old man just wants to show off. No. The one who refuted her was still Orochimaru. Salamander poison is only one part of Hanzo's strength. What matters more is his mastery of water release and his taijutsu, which is strong enough to defeat a general of the Land of Iron. Water release, fire release, taijutsu, toxins. He is an extremely well-rounded battlefield-type ninja, far beyond the leader of a minor ninja village. He may even rival the Kage of the 5 great shinobi villages, and against ordinary ninja, his killing power is even greater. Orochimaru analyzed the situation calmly, and everyone's eyes gathered on him. As for Hokage-sama, he is proficient in all 5 chakra natures and over 1,000 ninjutsu. Wind release can disperse poisonous mist, earth release can defend against explosive flame formations, lightning release can increase his speed. The corner of Orochimaru's mouth lifted slightly, filled with confidence in his teacher. Hokage-sama's taijutsu is also among the very best in the ninja world. Not to mention he has Enma, the strongest summon beast with both offense and defense. Sensei will definitely win. Enma. Jiraiya propped up his head, recalling the time in his youth when Hiruzen Sarutobi had taught him the summoning technique. Thinking back on it now, the old man had probably wanted me to make a contract with the Monkey Clan, hadn't he? Unfortunately, I used the summoning technique before forming a contract and got transported to Mount Mayaboku instead. It turned out fine. Aside from eating bugs being kind of disgusting, Mount Mayaboku was a pretty good place. Shingetsu agreed with Orochimaru's judgment. Although Hanzo had been called the pinnacle of ninja because of his performance in the Second Shinobi World War, there was still an obvious gap between him and Hiruzen Sarutobi in his prime. The adamantine staff formed by Enma could even push the Nine-Tails out of Konoha. Hiruzen Sarutobi had no shortage of methods to deal with large summoned beasts. Among all the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi was like the apple among fruits. Nothing about his strength left a particularly distinct impression, but he was simply well-rounded. Excluding Kekkai Genkai Ninja, he was the man who had truly reached the pinnacle of ninja. And Might Guy's life-burning kind of approach did not count either. As for the details of the Second Shinobi World War, Shingetsu only knew the general outline. But since the plot of the Sannin fighting Hanzo had not appeared yet, there should not have been a scene where Hiruzen Sarutobi showed up. Then, who had stopped Hiruzen Sarutobi? And Danzo. As far as Shingetsu knew, it was during the Second Shinobi World War that Danzo suffered repeated injuries, which led him to gradually move behind the scenes by the time of the Third Shinobi World War. With things developing like this, Could it have been the third Raikage, if Danzo managed to survive? Against that brute, then he really did have some tricks up his sleeve. One of the reasons Shingetsu had stayed in the Land of Rain was to see whether he would get a chance to secretly kill Danzo. He had said it before. He was not the kind of person who waited until the enemy attacked before passively striking back. Things had not reached that point yet. Could he try changing Danzo's view of the Uchiha? What a joke. In the time it would take to do that, he could kill him 10 times over. The meeting ended amid cheerful discussion and laughter over how long Hokage-sama would need to defeat Hanzo. Just as Orochimaru had said, no matter how anyone looked at it, Hanzo could not possibly be the Hokage's opponent. Orochimaru and Shingetsu walked out side by side, and he said quietly, "You don't think Hiruzen-sensei will win?" He understood his disciple too well. He could tell roughly what Shingetsu was thinking just from his expression. Shingetsu shook his head. "I just don't think he'll be able to come to the Land of Rain." Orochimaru's expression changed slightly. Shingetsu often claimed he could foresee the future, but Orochimaru did not take it seriously. The few times his predictions had been accurate, Orochimaru simply treated it as him possessing the same kind of situational analysis ability as Shikaku. "You mean someone will stop Hiruzen-sensei? Who could stop him?" When it came to Hiruzen Sarutobi's strength, Orochimaru was his greatest admirer, both now and later. Even his dream of learning every technique had been influenced by this man. Likewise, until Hiruzen Sarutobi's death, the Orochimaru in his eyes was still the boy from back then. "I don't know. The future I foresee isn't that accurate." The two of them walked quickly. Behind them, Nawaki waved and shouted, "Shingetsu! Orochimaru-sensei! Wait for me. Why did you bring that idiot?" Shingetsu glanced back, making no attempt to hide his disdain. Orochimaru smiled gently. "Nawaki may not have your talent, but he will become an outstanding ninja. No one can keep going alone. You should form proper bonds with your companions. Besides, Nawaki is still your junior brother." Shingetsu did not reject useful tools like Shikaku, but someone like Nawaki, without a protagonist's aura, a person with that kind of personality was just asking to die on the battlefield. Even after Shingetsu's warning, Orochimaru might be able to save him once, but there would always be another fatal situation waiting for him. "The Uchiha and the Senju may truly be able to, in your generation." As he was speaking, Shingetsu sensed something and looked toward one spot. A familiar figure entered his sight, and his expression changed. Whoosh! With a sharp screech as his body tore through the air, Shingetsu vanished instantly. So fast. Orochimaru's pupils constricted. They had not seen each other for half a year, and Shingetsu had become even faster. "Who told you to come?" A cold voice rang out, and several young ninjas sitting together looked up. Shingetsu's face was icy as he stared fixedly at the face that bore some resemblance to his own, yet looked even softer and more beautiful. Mikoto Uchiha. Chapter 38, I Will Protect You. Sh Shingetsu-sama. The young ninjas standing beside Mikoto naturally added the honorific. A 12-year-old jonin, with confirmed kills of nearly 20 enemy jonin and countless small-scale battles. In the 2 years since becoming a ninja, he had completed over 100 battlefield missions, more than half of them A rank and S rank. His record was terrifying. Even Sunagakir's legendary powerhouse, Chio the Puppet Master, had publicly admitted she had once been forced to retreat after facing him. Even without any of that, the pressure Shingetsu gave off just by standing there was impossible to ignore. His very existence felt like the heavens showing off the masterpiece they had created. Mikoto snapped back to herself and forced out an awkward but polite smile. "Ahaha, it's been a while, big brother." Shingetsu repeated coldly, "Who let you come here?" Everyone could tell he was furious. When he had returned to the village to report in and be promoted to jonin, he had specifically told Hiruzen Sarutobi that even if she graduated and became a ninja, she was not allowed on the battlefield. And now, Mikoto stood up, her smile fading as she met Shingetsu's gaze. "I'm a ninja. Why can't I come?" A cold sneer tugged at Shingetsu's lips. "A ninja? You don't have the talent to be a ninja at all." She stepped closer, facing his icy stare without the slightest fear. "I graduated at the top of my class and I'm an Uchiha with the Sharingan. What gives you the right to say that?" Her pitch-black pupils bled crimson and 2 tomo spun within them. 2 tomo. In the original timeline, Mikoto Uchiha had been a registered Konoha jonin even before her marriage, and had formed a friendship with Kushina on the battlefield. she was never just an ordinary gentle housewife. She was a powerful ninja. Heh! You're 100 years too early to act rebellious with me. Bang! He did not even activate the Sharingan. The sheer force of his intangible killing intent alone drove Mikoto back several steps, while the young ninja around her trembled in terror, frozen where they stood. Shingetsu, Orochimaru frowned, but his call received no response. Shingetsu walked toward Mikoto step by step, his eyes cold. What's wrong? You can't even withstand a trace of my killing intent? Then who gave you the courage to come here? Or did you think I'd give you special treatment and let you follow me around as dead weight? Shingetsu, that's too much. Orochimaru's expression hardened as he snapped. Your talent isn't a reason to belittle others. Mikoto was silent for a moment, breathing lightly as she steadied herself. Then the corner of her mouth lifted, revealing a smile that did not match her usual personality. That smile looked somewhat like Shingetsu's. There it is again. Big brother, you really don't have any new tricks. She raised her head again and met his eyes. You're trying to push me away from danger with cruel words because you can't be honest about how you feel. And someone this childish gets called a genius. It's honestly laughable, Shingetsu Uchiha. The commotion drew the attention of everyone in the camp, and people began gathering around. Some jonin placed their hands on their ninja tool pouches, while others gathered chakra beneath their feet, ready to body flicker over at any moment. Those siblings, both of them have sharp tongues, Jiraiya muttered under his breath. The rage everyone expected from Shingetsu never came. He looked at Mikoto indifferently. I don't want you to die. That's not hard to admit. You don't have the talent to be a ninja, and you don't belong on the battlefield. I've told you that before. Mikoto gritted her teeth and shot back. Then I'll say it again. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be carefully protected. I'm an Uchiha too. Is that so? Shingetsu raised his hand. In an instant his finger stopped right before the center of Mikoto's brow, a sharp blood-red blade pressing against her forehead. Real, unmistakable killing intent. Put your finger down. Stop. What are you doing? Swish, swish. Orochimaru used hidden shadow snake hands, and dozens of giant snakes coiled around Shingetsu's legs, hissing. Tsunade pulled Mikoto into her arms, glaring hard at Shingetsu. A hand landed on his shoulder. Jiraiya's face was full of killing intent. Even if it's you, if you dare attack a comrade. Shingetsu completely ignored the three of them. He looked at the horrified Mikoto and spoke faintly. Why, at this distance your Sharingan should have seen my slowed movements clearly. Your taijutsu should have been more than enough to dodge. Why didn't you do anything? Did you think I wouldn't kill you? Shingetsu lowered his finger and let out a disdainful sneer. Leaving aside all kinds of bizarre transformation jutsu, even if it really were me, I could still be controlled by some special technique. As a ninja, anyone who threatens your life must be treated as an enemy to be killed. Parents, siblings, lovers, sons, no matter who it is. Shingetsu's expression twisted fiercely, a rare loss of composure. Utterly foolish. Mikoto Uchiha. How many times do I have to tell you? Sir.
If you want to enjoy the rest of the chapters, go to my Patreon. Link is in the first pinned comment.